Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Reviews for Harry and Meghan's big-budget Netflix series have so far been less than kind. Unimaginative and frustrating, said Hollywood's Bible, Variety magazine. So sickening, I almost brought up my breakfast, said the woke Bible, The Guardian. Or the intimacy of Instagram, sneered the normally timid New York Times. A nauseating, self-serving snooze fest, said another pundit. Well, that was me, actually. Now, against this deluge of derision, Netflix today released a new trailer for the second half of this compelling series, which comes out on Thursday. Viewer discretion is advised. This clip contains weapons-grade hypocrisy. Institutional gaslighting, says Harry. Do you think he even knows what that means? They were happy to lie to protect my brother. Who? The royals? Me? The media? Who is it? The irony is earth-shattering, isn't it? Harry and Meghan are the Duke and Duchess of gaslighting themselves. The entire show is a cynical attempt to manipulate viewers into questioning their own recollections of reality. And if we learned anything at all from the first 3 hours of this $100 million wine-a-thon, it's surely that this dismal duo wouldn't know the truth if it smacked them around their smug chops. Let's look at their truth versus the actual truth. Meghan moans that royal advisors forced her to uninvite her dear niece, Ashley, from the wedding, the only member of her family that she seemed to be still talking to.
How do we explain that this half-sister isn't invited to the wedding, but that the half-sister's daughter is? And so, with Ashley, the guidance at the time was to not have her come to our wedding.
Yeah, that was a lie. Impeccably placed royal sources told the Sunday Times no such guidance was ever given.
What happens when a royal exit turns into a Netflix spectacle, and one of Britain's most outspoken broadcasters decides to call it out? Welcome to Uncovered. Today, I'm breaking down Piers Morgan's devastating critique of Harry and Meghan's Netflix docuseries. If you want honest, sharp analysis of today's biggest media stories, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So, Piers Morgan? He doesn't hold back. He's branded the entire series a wine fest, calling it a scripted narrative of victimhood designed to pull at heartstrings and score headlines. According to Morgan, Harry and Meghan set themselves up as helpless targets of royal cruelty, while launching attack after attack on the very institution they left behind. And what's even more controversial? He says this narrative is being sold on a global stage, monetized for maximum impact. Morgan's not flying solo here. Critics from The Telegraph, The Daily Mail, even former palace aides are echoing the same thing. This isn't about transparency. It's about damage control, packaged in emotional storytelling.
And that was supposed to be the show's big example of how Meghan really cares very deeply about her family. So deeply that only one member of that family was at the wedding, her mother. Not even her favourite little niece, Ashley. Meghan also sees she got no advice on royal protocol, forcing her to learn how to be a princess all on her own.
Joining this family, I knew that there was a protocol for how things were done. There's no class and some person who goes sit like this, cross your legs like this, use this fork, don't do this, curtsy then, wear this kind of hat. Doesn't happen.
Another lie. And by the way, Meghan, if you don't like me calling you a liar, just sue me and we'll go through all this in court. The Sunday Times discovered she was actually handed a 30-point dossier, studiously researched, brimming with information and contacts. Meghan later simpers that she never wore bright colours to show respect, because she's all about respect.
So I was like, well, what's a color that they'll probably never wear? Camel, beige, white. So I wore a lot of muted tones, but it also was so I could just blend in. Like, I'm not trying to stand out here.
No, the last thing Meghan Markle would ever want to do is stand out. But it's all another lie. Photos taken by the evil, bigoted British press show her wearing pretty much every colour in the rainbow. The show opens with the claim that the royal family declined to comment on the series. That's another lie. The palace says it received one email from an unknown company and attempts to verify it were flatly ignored. Even the story of their romance and engagement turns out to have been a series of whoppers. They told the BBC in 2017 they were set up by a mutual friend on a blind date. They told Netflix they met on Instagram. And what about Harry's modest proposal in their humble cottage kitchen?
It happened a few weeks ago, earlier this month, here at our cottage. Just a standard, typical night for us.
It's a cozy night. It was what were we doing? Just roasting chicken and
Roasting
having
a chicken, trying to roast a chicken.
trying to roast a chicken, and it was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet.
An amazing surprise. It was so sweet. Well, according to Netflix, which is their show, it was actually a candlelit extravaganza in their walled garden. And Meghan was so amazingly surprised, she managed to figure out what was happening and tell her friend about it before Harry even popped the question. A small little detail, but rather like their claim, or Meghan's claim, that they'd been secretly married by the Archbishop of Canterbury in their garden before, 3 days before, the big televised wedding, which also turned out not just to be untrue, but had it been true, would have led to the Archbishop of Canterbury being incarcerated in prison.
But here's where the contradictions pile up. Harry and Meghan insist they want privacy, yet this documentary gives us an inside look at everything from childhood photos to private text messages. Piers Morgan calls out the hypocrisy. You want the cameras off until Netflix is paying. And let's talk about the footage. Some scenes supposedly showing paparazzi harassment. Turns out a few were lifted from entirely different events, some not even involving the Sussexes at all. If that's true, it's not just misleading the public, it's straight-up manipulation. If you're into uncovering the truth behind media spin, you're in the right place. Because this is just getting started. Morgan's harshest criticism? The couple's ongoing use of their royal connections. Even after stepping back, they're still cashing in on their titles, from Netflix deals rumored to be worth up to $100 million to global branding as the Sussexes. Piers argues they didn't build their empire despite the monarchy, but because of it. So, while they blast the royal family for control and cruelty, they're building a media brand on the exact same foundation. The irony isn't lost on anyone. And then there's the documentary itself. Piers says it's one-sided. No critics, no royal sources, no attempt to present the other side. There's only their truth, with none of the journalistic standards you'd expect in a real investigation.
As with all things Meghan and Harry, it would seem, the truth just doesn't really exist in their world. It's their truth, their version of it. Meghan also lambasted the entire BBC engagement interview as rehearsed and an orchestrated reality show, because that's the last thing she'd be engaging in, isn't it? An orchestrated reality show, like the Netflix series. Michelle Hussein from the BBC, who carried out the interview, said, actually, no, it was just an interview. Even the BBC's long-serving royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell, normally bent double to avoid upsetting absolutely anybody in royal circles, can't take it anymore.
Consider one of the things that Meghan said. No matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me. Well, the first point, who is the they that she's referring to? I think it is the palace, but most particularly it is to the press. But the idea that anyone was out to destroy her, frankly, I think is absurd and simply does not stand up to proper and reasonable scrutiny.
Well, that's Nicholas Witchell's way of saying you're lying. And he's right. They lie all the time. Nothing they ever say seems to stand up to reasonable scrutiny. And I say that as somebody who lost his last job presenting Good Morning Britain because I wouldn't apologise for saying I didn't believe Meghan Markle. Think about that. Well, just like they've failed to ever provide a shred of evidence for their claims of racism in the palace, or Meghan's claims over mental health problems. She said that they were not just ignored by the palace, but she was told she wasn't allowed to get any help for suicidal thoughts by somebody at the palace. Who was that person? They shouldn't be working at the palace. We've never had a name, like we've never had any names about the racism. Today's new trailer makes clear that the gloves are off in the next 3 episodes of the show. And remember, this is just the warm-up. Then there's Harry's book coming in early January. Hundreds of pages of more allegations about his family. There will be mudslinging, incendiary claims, bombshells, and, I fear, a lot more lies. And on behalf of the British people and the monarchy they're trashing, I intend to call out every single lie that they utter in their attempt to not just destroy the royal family, but to potentially bring down the British monarchy.
Morgan's point? In the court of public opinion, selective storytelling can be just as damaging as outright lies. If you're going to accuse people, he argues, they should at least have the chance to defend themselves. So where does this leave us? Piers Morgan calls the Netflix series self-serving, misleading, and destructive. Not just a bad look for Harry and Meghan, but maybe one of the most damaging media events for the royal family in decades. Whether you agree with Piers or not, here's what's clear. This story isn't about healing. It's about branding, power, and controlling the narrative. If you found this breakdown insightful, smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe to Uncovered. We're diving deeper into the media's biggest controversies. Truth first, spin later. See you in the next video.